Hi, I'm Oliver Brown from Condesa Co.Lab. I'm joined by Stephen Bannister, our director and guru on all things sea market, and we're here again to talk about how it's impacting you, the roaster.
Thanks, Ollie. Glad to be here. Definitely crazy week on the markets, continuing to rally and everything else. But let's get into the questions.
Yeah, thanks. This is a bit of a historical one. Overnight, we reached sort of record highs of 201.3, I think, before things settled back down to 199. There's a lot going on. It's a very interesting time for coffee. It's so interesting because what we've seen the frost. We're now seeing perhaps the results of a drought as well, and what that looks like. Why are we still seeing prices where they are? Is that an impact of the fact that droughts take longer to work out what's going on? Give us a bit of an insight into sort of what's happening between frost on one hand, drought on the other, and why we've not immediately seen with the frost impact going, we've not immediately seen a fall wave. We've seen the exact opposite.
Yeah, I think again it's all about really balancing the equation or balancing the supply and demand. And we thought we left the weather market behind us through the end of the frost period in Brazil. But unfortunately, we've definitely hit a big patch of warm weather and not enough follow-up rains or anything. And it's really about trying to continue to quantify forward potentially production losses. It's easy sometimes to quantify production losses from a frost because you just take the trees out. So you can do a bit of a mathematical yield equation on each tree. How many trees did I take out? How many trees do I have for my next harvest versus the previous harvest? There's good ways that an agronomical practices in place that people can do to predict their future crops. But with drought, it's very much difficult. It's a lot harder. We're looking at, will the coffee flower? How will the coffee tree flower? How will the fruit set? Will there be enough follow-up rains through the fruit maturation period and everything like that? So there's a lot of people, I guess, in mathematical land trying to balance that equation right now, and the weight of the noise is really on, well, if we don't know, we're going to price in risk, we're going to price to the high side, and no one's really willing to necessarily sell right now at the same time. It's definitely a wait and see outcome, especially are we going to get those September rains and are they going to be enough? We've gone through a much drier period even over the last 3 months to September in 2021 than we have in 2020 at the same time. So even that soil moisture is a bit lower.
Another question I have, again, this is a bit of a, it sort of shows my point of view where it comes from. Like, I'm assuming there's no one actually that's I know there certainly isn't like one body going out and counting, what the yield is. Is it all done on this theoretical mathematical side, or is it sort of a combination of sort of a number of things that come into play with the eventual number?
It's a huge balancing act. I mean, if you look at the number of hectares involved in Brazil to grow 70 million bags of coffee or 60 million bags of coffee potentially now, then that's a huge area. So there's no reason or rhyme or reason that we can go out and count all that. There's definitely people doing crop surveys, and we have fantastic partners and agronomists on the ground that regularly go and tour in all our growing regions with the partners that we support. But to get the big number, it really has to be about modeling and everything else. And thankfully, we've got some great people that work with us that construct these models, and we've got good data to feed into them at the same time.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? And again, like, it's this collective, I guess. You're looking at multiple different sources of info. I guess we're all looking at that info and coming to this conclusion.
Yeah, and I think you've also got to think that, I mean, modeling, it's not only about Brazil, it's also about Colombia, Uganda, many other different producing countries in the world. So Brazil is always a big driver because of its weight and its percentage, but there's other nuances that are constantly changing that need to sort of be factored in as well.
Thanks. It's a good yeah, good thing to be aware of. Another question I sort of wanted a bit of a deep dive on and talk around was the concept of the differential. Again, I think we all assume that everyone knows what we're talking about when we talk about the differentials. But I'm sure you'll explain in better detail than I can. But obviously, it's a set price that a given origin works upon, that they offer their given qualities at a certain range. So you might see plus 20 over the current C market, or minus 15 based on the C market. Now, from me, it's been really interesting to see that in the past, where the prices have been very high like this, you would see the differential softening. It's not happened this time round. Why is that? Is there any reason why we're not seeing the softening of differentials, and what's happening there?
Not an easy question, Ollie. Definitely, but I think, yeah, to start with, a differential really reflects the quality of a product that is paid above or below the futures exchange price for a shipment in the future. So when we're talking about a certain differential, we're talking about that maybe 20 cents over for Honduras, at maybe 50 cents over for Colombia, maybe 10 cents under for Brazil. And each one has a different dynamic. And that dynamic is taken into account for demand of the product, as well as what's happening within the country itself. Now, there's always this expectation that they will have a sort of an inverse relationship. I'm not sure if that's the correct mathematical term, but if one moves up, then the other will move down, and generally coffee will always stay the same price. But in fact, as we're seeing many challenges, both country challenges, shipment challenges, and everything else, then certain price is being priced into differentials. And also people are trying to get, I would say, or farmers are trying to get better income for themselves at the moment at the same time. So they're keeping their differentials more or less where they are, and gaining on that C market price increase at the same time. And we've got to remember that over the last 4 years, we've probably been in a market which has been hovering just at cost of production. So most farmers have broken even, or maybe even, unfortunately, not even that, to grow their coffee. Some have been very successful, but on the whole, if you look at what we work out as the sort of minimum world price would be around 130 cents a pound, maybe more. We've been under that for quite a lot of last year and quite a lot of the few years before that. So now it's the opportunity also for some farmers to put a little bit of money in the bank, and they don't want to necessarily sell too early at the same time. So they're waiting to see. They might not have their crop yet, or harvesting, depending on what cycle and country they're in. So there's no need for them to really go and sell right today. They're still waiting. Prices on the whole look like they're increasing. So they're waiting, which means that unfortunately differentials aren't softening. We're also seeing potentially that those that are offering or trading coffee at the same time are putting those couple of cents in because they don't know where the price will be at the same time.
Do you think that sort of also indicates much more self-knowledge in the farmers nowadays than it did, let's say, 10 years ago, 5 years ago? They've got much more access to technology. They've got much more access to information, and therefore they're more informed and more able to bat for themselves, if you like. Do you think that's
Oh,
also having an impact?
100%. I mean, information is power to make better decisions on, and now farmers get prices updated via text messages and other things on what's happening within the market themselves, let alone waiting to be informed what the price is by a an exporter or a middleman or anything like that. So I think knowledge and information is power. There's days like, we go back a long time, where you got the price from your fax machine 2 days later, or you might be up country and the power went out. You don't even know what the price is. You just keep buying. Might be in your favor, it might not.
Yeah.
But today we're in a ever connected world. There's no point where you're not disconnected. And I think, yeah, that means that potentially farmers can look to try and maximize their price as well with what they expect, or make better decisions, rather than just, I sold it X price last year, so I'll just hit X price this year. I think there's definitely much more foresight in how people are planning and where they're planning to sell.
And it would seem as well like that this, this self-awareness, despite the fact, we were talking about it earlier, you and I, like the big exchange warehouses, in London and US, like they're as full of as they've been in a while, and yet we're still seeing this self-confidence. That's really interesting to see.
Yeah, I think the exchange warehouses are really interesting, and we've gone through a couple of cycles where last year, I think COVID hit and we had a big drawdown in the exchange inventories, because everyone was like, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to pull inventory out. Now we've got a bit better read on COVID and everything, which is good. We know it's not a doomsday thing. We just have to all get vaccinated essentially, and we'll go on, and hopefully normal services will resume.
Yeah, wow. And I got on that. I mean, looking a bit sort of closer to home, like how long do you think the situation's going to have to be in Australia? The prices are challenging. Demand is there, and gaps will be appearing. How soon do we expect this situation to remain before roasters have to change their models, rethink, sort of a traditional move back to, for example, having a percentage of Robusta to maintain prices, or increase prices? Do you think we can manage this for another year? Do you think this is people will be able to ride the storm? What's your take on this?
I mean, I think it has to do with a lot of roasters' own forward planning at the moment, and their own ideas to price risk management and everything else. I think if you're not so covered, then it makes economical sense to be doing as many models as you can on what ratios do you need. If we look at the arbitrage, the difference in price between Arabica and Robusta, we've been at 50 cents for a long time. We just hit $1. So Robusta is technically conveniently way more cheaper than Arabica right now. It's still not going to be at that price you want it to be. It may be the price that you're used to be buying Arabica at the same time. But I think those that are constantly weighing, those sort of balancing on what to put in and make it economically viable for their business, that's the sensible thing. It's hard to say how long, as we joked, how long is a piece of string? If you look at 2014, I think it took 18 months. But it's also, at what level does the market need to retrace to present value? I've heard some markets, they're a buy now below 180. I think I've seen other models where I need it to be below 160. But what we need, sometimes the market doesn't necessarily give that to us at the same time. And as a roaster, you're always short. You're always needing to buy coffee in some way, shape, or form. So you can wait today and see where it will go. Or you can decide to sort of make small investments and take the weighted average of the move over a longer period of time. But I think the hardest thing is really understanding and making sure that the qualities you use are available. Because I think also the just-in-time supply constraints of the world that we sort of talked about the last couple of chats are really playing out. And as someone else wrote overnight that I read, it ain't going to get easier or better. Like the good freight stories have been had this year, and it's only going to get more challenging. You're going to have to pay up to get space now, to get into the front of the queue, to put your vessel on when or close to when you intended it to. If not, it could be 3-6 months late, depending on what country. And I'd love to say that transshipment is not an issue, but transshipment might be parked a month in an Asian country in a humid condition, which ain't great for coffee either, in a steel box. Having worked previously in Indonesia, I have nightmares of my coffee being stuck at the port for 2 weeks and what's happening to it. So I need it to go out as fast as possible. And those are things that are continuing to challenge all of us as we want to get the coffee where it needs to be to the roaster, even within their COVID footprint and consumption.
Yeah, here, watch this space. I have many challenges ahead. Steve, thank you very much for that. I think we'll wrap it up, but I will just say, for those watching, if you've got any questions, please do post a comment. If you want us to dig deeper into a particular subject or unwrap something for you, we're all ears and we're happy to do that. And also, hopefully, we've got some guest appearances later on in the month as well, as we look at the specialty side as well as the commercial side. So I'll be chatting with some of our other team members. So Steve, thanks so much, and really appreciate your time, and all the best.
Thanks, Ollie. Thanks, everybody. Look forward to seeing you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.